Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of Loki, Science/Fiction. And I'm getting kind of tired of this show. Like, there weren't bad concepts in here, but again, it comes down to how it is executed. We deal with time slipping again with Loki, which evidently now comes back because the plot demands that it is a useful skill to be utilized now, instead of something that pretty much was an annoyance before. Like, if it could have been useful, why didn't they go upon this track to begin with instead of finding a fix and then needing it to be utilized at the end? And the thing that I'm alright with is that since the timelines and everything are going kind of nutty-doo-dah, we start seeing the decaying effect, the spaghettification, the stringing of everything together. I do like that that goes with temporal weaving, threads of time, that kind of motif. That's actually really kind of cool and leads to some really cool effects works. However, we don't have an explanation for why this is occurring. Like, is the temporal wound the only thing that's making the ability for concrete material reality existing an anchor? Like, is that the reason we had this, and that since it explodes and fucks off, that it gets all nutty-doo-dah nutty-day? Because that becomes a central kind of concept of Loki's argument with Sylvie. Like, the thing is, they're having the kind of wrong argument when we get to that kind of point. But those are the kind of things that are interesting of, like, the whole destruction of the universe with that. The time slipping just, it would have been a better concept if we didn't already have to deal with it, fix it, and then have to utilize it again because the plot just, like, he needs to time slip. Because it's never even really explained why Loki begins time slipping again. Because after last week's explosion, we see that he's the only one in the TVA. He's like, what the fuck's going on? And he starts time slipping again, and we get no reason why. And again, I understand that not everything needs to be completely and utterly explained, but just doing it because of reasons and because the plot demands is not how you do things. You need a kind of concrete... If you have a character that suddenly farts out fava beans, and you're just like, okay, is this a random occurrence? I mean, even if it's the dumbest explanation of, if you reach the 30th birthday of your life, you will start farting out strange objects. Fava beans, carrots, cupcakes, fucking hubcaps. Like, just because random chaos in the universe. I can accept that. This, it's more like, oh, we dealt with this thing, which we didn't even understand why Loki was time-slipping in a place that you couldn't really time-slip to begin with, and it just almost becomes like a meta weird-ass commentary on shit. We see Loki going through another kind of mini-motion of going through the TVA, seeing his future self, disappearing, and then we see that he gets back to that point and has the TVA guide, and everything starts going to nutty-doo-dah, nutty-day, and then he time-slips. And then we start seeing that everybody else got blasted off to various different kind of branched realities. According to the Wikipedia entry, it says that these are their past lives. However, I saw nothing within the show itself to showcase this, so when I was watching it, I just thought they got randomly blasted onto timelines with their own kind of like backstories and histories, not that even we knew that these were their original lives or whatnot. So we see that Casey is in 1962 escaping from Alcatraz, going by the name of Frank. We see that Don is in 2022 selling jet skis, being a single dad. We see that B-15 is a doctor in 2012, and that OB is Dr. A.D. Doug in like 1994 or whatnot. And we just get into their little vignettes, and then Loki starts kind of time-slipping throughout the various kind of portions of where these guys are at, because they're his friends. But the last one he kind of hits on is Doug, OB, and he's a sci-fi writer and a physicist a physicist, and is able to kind of like walk him through, give him the TVA guidebook that he got during at the TVA before it started like threading out and destruction, and gives it to him, and pretty much is able to get him to utilize temp pads before he pretty much time slips back to talking to Don Mobius, and pretty much gets him back into the fold, and then getting everybody else back together. This would have been kind of better if we had gotten like an episode or whatnot focused solely on pretty much these characters living their lives and everything before we see Loki being like, there are bad things happening. He doesn't even bring up the whole thing that the TVA was threading and spaghettifying. I'm like, is that like... now, granted, he just talks how that that Don's boys would be in danger, and then he's like, we could bring you back whenever, because we see Doug pretty much fucking with the temp pad that he made pretty quickly in like 19 months, and he's like, we'll bring you back to your times, and then they pretty much gather everyone, and he's like, this is almost, because Doug is like, listen, maybe you could try and control your time slipping. It gets really kind of meta of like, all right, the why or the how. Maybe it's the who. Maybe you need to focus on the temporal aura of everybody together to kind of focus your time slipping. It's like, okay. And so he pretty much tries to gather everybody together to work on that fact. So he goes, and for some reason Sylvie is the only one to retain her memories, and she pretty much is saying that like Loki, and she's like, let them live their time on the timeline, and Loki rightfully is being like, you took away their choice. Like, they should have a choice if they want to be at the TVA or not. And she's like, oh, like pretty much calling her on being selfish. She's like, yeah, because he who remains going and pruning timelines was wrong. All right, chasing after Sylvie was wrong. But you don't just burn something down and then not understand what that does to the universe, especially with what we are kind of seeing of reality fucking not kind of exploding away. It's like, she doesn't have, she's like, oh, I'm selfish, you're selfish because you want your friends back. It's like, it's not just that he wants his friends back. He doesn't want everybody in existence to die. This is like a big thing for this 2012 Loki. For any kind of Loki, really. Yes, he wants his friends. And I think it's kind of stupid that they're kind of playing it that that's the only really kind of reason. Because it's not. There's physical, concrete evidence of what we see, because then Sylvie is like chilling in her branch timeline before that fucking thunder cracks, and she utilizes He Who Remains as temp pad to like go, yeah, shit's going wrong. You fucking think? You think Loki's just trying to rip people from the timeline for no fucking reason? I mean, sure, that sounds like something that a Loki would do. However, you need to, like, explore that and actually do something with it. Because at this point, she's just like, oh, you're being selfish. And then she comes in and is like, yeah, it's just going real. And then they're trying to figure out what to do, but the temp pad's gone. It's like, what the fuck's going on? And then everybody starts pretty much decaying and everything, but Loki is then able to utilize his time skipping by focusing on one person, and he focuses on Sylvie and gets back to before that, and he's like, I figured out how to control my time slipping. It's on Who. And then he focuses on OB before the whole explosion of the temporal loom. Let's see. So, I don't mind groundhog kind of effects and timelines and everything, but this seems to be the, like, drug out, weirdly poorly paced thing possible on how these things are happening. I don't mind Loki dealing with the temporal loom. It sounded like a good anchor conflict for our heroes to go up against, but its execution leaves me bored out of my mind and just almost uninterested in trying to figure this out, because we keep going through this and it's like, what's the solution? There's one episode left. They're going to have to pull something out of their ass for that kind of thing to happen. It's like, okay, he's back there. We don't have the temporal auras of certain kind of people, so he's going to have to go around, unless we're getting Loki set up as pretty much kind of Kang-like or whatnot, and an opposite of Kang the Conqueror kind of stuff, which isn't completely outside of the realm of possibility, with Jason Aaron's run on the Avengers multiverse kind of thing, with him gathering certain Avengers and whatnot. But it's just mind-numbing to me, and I don't like that. It's not, and it's got nothing to do with the actors. I love the actors, but every time, the content, the direction, the overall structuring of the show, this really does show that this is not structured properly for a kind of TV show. It just starts and stops. It has weird spots for places, and I've just not been having a good time with this, and that sucks. But if you are, that's awesome. I don't like to take joy or anything. If you like it, that's cool. Just be like, alright, you don't like it, that's fine. Just enjoy it. My problems are just, if time slipping was such a kind of integral kind of thread, it should follow throughout the whole season, not just be like, it's a problem, we fixed it, and now it just came back because the plot needed it to. Like, we don't even know what else time slipping can actually be. If it's essentially a power of like being a temp pad without having the device and just being able to willfully manipulate yourself throughout time and space, that is like an OP fucking thing that needs to be like explored and amazingly detailed of what's kind of going on, not just, oh, here's this kind of problem we got to deal with before we deal with the actual big problem. And I don't, like, if you're going through a show, you should have an understanding of the processes that are going to need to be done to fix the kind of central problem. Maybe not understand the complete nuts and bolts of what's going on, but be like, hey, here's the kind of problem. Let's see. Trying to think of some good one example-wise. God, I can't just think of it off the top of my head, because most of them I start going to are the ones that kind of flame the fuck out at the end. Damn. But you kind of start getting an idea of what's kind of going on and how our heroes would try and solve this problem. We're getting towards the end, and everything that we've done so far has just been failure after failure after failure after failure, which can lead to thinking of a successful kind of way of doing it if you got your process of elimination going. Here, it's just like, what are we doing? What's going on? What are we supposed to get from this? Is it just like, I don't mind teases of where certain kind of stories can go, but we should have an idea of where we're going to be ending this season instead of next time on Dragon Ball Z. Now granted, comics and Dragon Ball and all that do have the tendency of overplaying and just being this is the next story, this is the next story, and not giving a complete definitive end, but you have to fight against that tendency. There can be points where you end a story and still have room to go and continue on. It's a delicate balancing act. And here, I don't know what to think of how we're going to be getting through this season. Is Loki going to time slip all the way back? Like, the only thing that I can think of is that he would time slip back to stop Sylvie from killing He Who Remains, and trying to avoid this whole fiasco to begin with. However, being able to talk Sylvie and He Who Remains into allowing branch timelines to occur or whatnot. Or maybe even time slipping all the way back to the multiversal war and trying to persuade He Who Remains into not going completely and utterly nutty, but having some other kind of containment protocol for the Council of Kangs. I don't know. There are some possibilities. We'll have to see how this works out. But I have not been enthused with this season so far. And it is not the actors. I do like the actors. They do the best job that they can with the content and how they're directed and everything. And I love Tom Hiddleston as Loki. I love Sylvie, Mobius, B-15, Casey. I even love OB and what's kind of going on. And I just think in a better executed show, these characters and these actors would be able to be just awesome, amazing kind of time traveling adventures. And it just isn't hitting for me. Like, 6 episodes is not enough. The structure needs to be changed up foundation-wise of how this was done, because this definitely feels like a cut-up movie where they stringed in other stuff to kind of pad it out. Ugh. So, those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.